Hello YouTube, the Sponser here with the fourth episode of Flipping Tables. Today I'll be discussing the Industrial Revolution. Before I begin, I'd like to say a few things. First, I sincerely apologize for missing my deadline. I work on these videos alone, and unexpected events clogged my time for this episode. It's been very difficult to manage multiple things in my life, and this past week has overwhelmed me. Next, this episode is a bit different if you haven't noticed. It's about an age. I've decided to change it for this episode as I've done 3 straight about wars. Now, to truly begin the episode. Today we'll be discussing 1. The cotton gin, 2. Thomas Edison, 3. Steam power, 4. Coal, 5. Henry Clay's American system, and 6. The spinning machine by Sir Richard Arkwright. The cotton gin was a revolutionary device created by Eli Whitney, one of the greatest breakthroughs of the Industrial Revolution. It allowed Southerners to make cotton profitable. This allowed for America to grow much more wealthy, however at an incredible price. Southerners demanded many more slaves, thus reviving slavery, and this demand was disliked by the abolitionists. Soon a divide grew, and the Civil War soon followed. Now, what would have happened? Had the cotton gin never existed, the South would have never had its economical evolution and never would have been remarked for its cotton. There are some positives, and, surprisingly, some negatives to this never happening. Due to no demand for the growth of cotton, slavery would have never been revived. Thus, there would have been no reason for the Civil War. This would have spared America from nearly 600,000 deaths and a near-collapse experience. Slavery would have still eventually been abolished, as abolitionists would still have some influence, and technology from the Industrial Revolution would render slaves less needed. However, there are many negatives if this invention was never created. The money that flowed into America was used for none other than the Industrial Revolution itself, and without it, the revolution would have been slower. It wouldn't have stopped, however, due to the industrialization of the North and profit through that. Now, we'll move on to Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison was a brilliant man who was credited with creating the light bulb, motion picture cameras, and the principles of mass production. He was the first, along with Nikola Tesla, to truly harness the power of electricity. Him and Nikola Tesla were the two men who allowed us to enter the electronic world we have today. Now, what would have happened? Had Edison never entered the world, the American Industrial Revolution would have surely suffered. Edison had showed a practical way of using electricity in a brilliant way, aka the light bulb. He also created the first motion picture camera, called then the Kintograph, which allowed for movies, television, and nearly all forms of our entertainment. And of course, he applied the principles of mass production to his laboratories, which proved to be an astounding success. Some may say Edison shouldn't be credited with his inventions. Nikola Tesla created alternate currents. However, Edison and his business prevented them spread, and W.K.L. Dixon was the one who actually worked on the photographic and optical development of the Kintograph. However, few realized that Thomas Edison employed both these men, and had he not existed, neither would have been employed, leaving Tesla in the UK as he emigrated from there, and Dixon without an idea as Edison first conceived it. His ability to manage both products and the people was key to his success as an inventor, and key to why we have what we have today. Had it not been for Edison, it'd be likely that we'd be much farther back with our modern technology, and the Industrial Revolution would have had that much value lost. Now we'll talk about steam power. Steam power was utilized via steam engines by James Watt and Thomas Newcomen. Their engines were soon used to replace the North's water power, and even replace the method of power used in trains. It was nearly 4 times as efficient and could be used anywhere. Soon it was used to power machine tools, factories, mills, and many more inventions throughout the Revolution. Now, what would have happened? Had steam power never been utilized, the entire Industrial Revolution would have been a step lower than it would have otherwise. Work would have been much slower due to water power being less effective, and materials would have been transported at a much slower rate due to the lack of a steamboat. So many machines use steam power, and without it, the Industrial Revolution would have been cut off short of what it could have been. The world would have then had to slowly work towards creating something similar to the steam engine over a longer period of time, putting our present world behind to what we actually are technologically. Now to discuss coal. Coal was the fuel for the Industrial Revolution as the steam engine was its engine. Coal was hugely required to fuel the steam engines and other fires. Therefore, America hired a huge amount of new workers to mine it nearly everywhere. This also led to a huge leap in fossil fuels. The greatest thing this demand did was bring the Americans underground to discover many new things, as before they had mainly used the resources above ground. Now, what would have happened? Had coal not been utilized and mined, America would have had to use wood and other natural fuel to power the steam engines. And soon all of colonized North America would be deforested to power the Industrial Revolution. Soon after, there would be a massive effort to populate the forests. However, we lose many species in trees, and practically none of them would be natural, similar to the situation we have today in Pennsylvania. This would be a major disaster for the environment, and it would be uncertain if we could recreate our once massive forests. Not only this, but we would take much longer to have our fossil fuel revolution, only after we deforest America. This would also delay our exploration of the underground, perhaps delaying many discoveries of ore and caverns beneath us. Now to move on to Henry Clay's American system. Henry Clay was a powerful politician during the 1800s who had a major idea to induce industrial growth. His idea included putting tariffs on foreign products and using the government's money for roads, rails, and canals. It allowed business and industry to grow and become recognized, and the American country soon grew as well. Now, what would have happened? Had Clay's system never been enacted, foreign goods would muffle American goods and industrialization similar as they do today. Because of this, inventors and innovators would have much more difficulty getting their creations into the world. Not only this, but a lack of funding for transportation would slow the growth of the country and slow the usage of resources collected from areas, aside from the North, just hindering industrialization in the North even more. Overall, Henry Clay's American system was an absolute necessity for the Industrial Revolution. Without it, it would be nearly impossible for Americans to adapt new technologies, as there wouldn't be enough money. Now to conclude, we'll talk about Sir Richard Arkwright. Sir Richard Arkwright was an engineer in England who designed a spinning contraption that used water power to thread cotton. He was also majorly credited for creating our modern factory system, using power, machinery, laborers, and raw material to create a product, in this case yard. He was able to mass produce it and became referred to as the father of the Industrial Revolution. Now, what would have happened? Had Sir Richard Arkwright never existed, nearly nothing would change. It seems odd for me to take this stance, I know. However, to those who study the Industrial Revolution, many believe he was the man who started it all, and without him there would be just no revolution. It may seem harsh and disrespectful, but the most Richard Arkwright ever was a simple spark to a powder keg full of geniuses. His water wheel and mass production ability soon showed England that they could make a huge amount of products and goods faster than ever. This ideal soon spread to America, and not much after everywhere around the world. With this ideal in the population, the great inventors across the world sprung at the opportunity, thus truly starting the revolution. However, I'll go as far to say that he wasn't even responsible for his own inventions, the spinning machine and the modern factory layout. Another man, known as Thomas Hyes, has had strong evidence backing the fact that it was him, not Arkwright, who invented the spinning frame. Even if this is false, another man named Lewis Paul was a source of inspiration, as well as the source to the carding engine, which mainly turned the cotton into thread. What Arkwright mainly did was provide patents and financial support for the two so their work could continue. However, another man could have easily replaced his role, Thomas Edison. As previously stated, he owned a business which proved very expansive, employing people such as Nikola Tesla. If Tesla emigrated from England to America, Thomas Hyes could as well. Not only this, but Edison could have developed the modern factory system himself. He was already developing a system of mass production, and if Arkwright hadn't come up with it, most likely he would have. Now, it may seem that I'm giving a lot to Edison, and you're right. However, I don't believe that this would be the better scenario for the Industrial Revolution. If Edison was the one who started the Industrial Revolution, he'd dominate the market and basically rule the entire thing. He'd be the judge and the jury. If somebody made something that could ruin him, he had the power to put it down. Nonetheless, it's simply all a matter of opinion. It's up to you whether I'm right or wrong. And that concludes the Industrial Revolution. It was a rather short episode, and I apologize for such. However, the next episode, which will be on World War I, I plan to make incredibly in-depth. Until then, my viewers, see you soon.